They won't find the mistake I made. You're never waking up.
His fingers squeezed mine, gentle, warm, the way a loving husband holds his dying wife. But his mouth moved close to my ear, and the words that came out were pure poison. Only 3 days, baby. Just 3 more days, and finally, everything's mine. Thanks for being so stupid, Maggie. You made this almost too easy. He laughed softly. Then he kissed my forehead and walked out of the room, whistling like a man without a single care in the world. He thought I was unconscious. He thought the sedatives had knocked me out completely. He was wrong. I heard every word. I felt his breath on my skin. I saw that smile through my barely open eyes. That beautiful, charming smile that I had trusted for 2 years. The smile that made me believe in love again. And in that moment, lying in that hospital bed, I made a decision. Ryan Mitchell was going to pay for what he did to me. He was going to lose everything, and I was going to be the one to take it all away. My name is Margaret Thompson. I am 58 years old, and this is the story of how I destroyed the man who tried to destroy me. Before I tell you what happened, I need to ask you something. If my story touches your heart, please subscribe to this channel and stay with me until the very end. Leave a comment telling me which city you are watching from. I want to know how far my story has traveled. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear this. Someone is going through what I went through. Someone needs to know that they are not alone and that they are stronger than they think. Now let me take you back to where it all began. 4 years before that hospital room, I buried my husband, Richard. 33 years of marriage. 33 years of building a life together, of fighting and making up, of watching our dreams come true one by one. We started Thompson Real Estate with nothing but a small loan and a lot of hope. By the time Richard got sick, we had built an empire worth $47 million, but none of that money could save him. Cancer. Pancreatic cancer, the kind that sneaks up on you and destroys everything before you even know it is there. By the time the doctors found it, Richard had maybe 6 months to live. He lasted 18 months of watching the strongest man I ever knew become a shadow. 18 months of hospital rooms and chemotherapy and prayers that went unanswered. 18 months of holding his hand and telling him everything would be okay, even when we both knew it was a lie. The night he died, he could barely speak. His voice was just a whisper, like wind through dry leaves. But he grabbed my hand with whatever strength he had left, and he looked at me with those brown eyes that I had loved since I was 23 years old. Maggie, promise me something. I leaned closer. Tears were streaming down my face. Anything, Richard. I will do anything. Do not close your heart. When I am gone, do not lock yourself away. You deserve to be loved again. Promise me you will let someone in. I do not want anyone else. I only want you. Please do not leave me. Please, Richard, please. Promise me, Maggie. So I promised. What else could I do when the man you have loved for more than 3 decades asks you for one final thing? You give it to him, even if it shatters you into a million pieces. Richard died at 3:47 in the morning. I was holding his hand. I felt the exact moment his soul left his body. 1 heartbeat, then nothing. Just silence and the steady beep of machines and the sound of my own screaming. They had to sedate me to get me out of that room. The funeral was enormous. 400 people came to pay their respects. Business partners, employees, friends, family. Everyone said the same things. He was a great man. He loved you so much. If there is anything we can do. I nodded and smiled and shook hands and felt absolutely nothing. It was like I was watching myself from outside my own body, going through the motions, playing the part of the grieving widow. That numbness stayed with me for 2 years. I kept running the company because Richard would have wanted me to. I had dinner with friends because they would not stop calling. I smiled when I was supposed to smile. But inside, I was empty. Just a shell walking around in expensive clothes pretending to be alive. My doctor noticed. David Chen had been Richard's best friend since medical school. He had held my hand through the diagnosis, the treatment, the funeral, and now he was watching me fade away. Maggie, you need to start living again. I am living, David. No, you are not. You are existing, There is a difference." He pushed a piece of paper across his desk. "I want you to join a gym. Get your body moving. It will help your mind too." I almost laughed. "A gym, David? I am 54 years old. What am I going to do at a gym?" "You are going to take care of yourself. Richard would have wanted that." Richard's name. It always hit me like a punch to the stomach. So I joined a gym. Fit Life, a nice place downtown. Mostly people my age trying to stay healthy. I went 3 times a week, walked on the treadmill, lifted some light weights. Nothing special. And then I met Ryan Mitchell. I remember the first time I saw him. He was across the gym, helping an elderly man with his form. Patient, attentive, laughing at something the old man said. When he smiled, his whole face lit up. I knew he was young, early 30s maybe. Dark hair, blue eyes, the kind of body that belonged on a magazine cover. He was beautiful in a way that almost did not seem real. I looked away and went back to my treadmill. Men like that did not exist in my world anymore. I was a widow pushing 60. I had no business even noticing a man half my age. But then he walked over to me. "Excuse me, ma'am." I pulled out my earbuds. "Yes, I am Ryan, one of the personal trainers here." He held out his hand. His handshake was warm and firm. "I have seen you here a few times. You always work out alone. I just wanted to introduce myself." "Thank you. I prefer to work out alone." "That is totally fine. But if you ever need help with anything, I am around." He smiled again. Something in my chest flickered. Just for a second. "First session is free if you are interested." "I will think about it." I had no intention of taking him up on that offer. But Ryan did not push. He just waved whenever he saw me, asked how my day was going, remembered little things I mentioned in passing, like the time I came in exhausted after a long night of work. "Rough night," he asked. "How can you tell? You are on your 3rd coffee and you keep rubbing your temples." He grinned. "Work problems." "You could say that. I am trying to close on a property, but the seller is being difficult." "What kind of property?" "An old theater downtown. Beautiful building, but it needs work. I want to restore it, keep the original architecture, but the owner wants to sell to a developer who will tear it down and build condos." Ryan's eyes went wide. "You want to save the theater that is incredible. Most people would just take the easy profit." "I am not most people." "No," he said softly. "You definitely are not." Something passed between us in that moment, a connection I was not expecting, a spark I thought had died with Richard. I started accepting his training sessions. Once a week at first, then twice. He pushed me just hard enough, celebrated my progress, never made me feel old or foolish. And we talked. About everything. About Richard, about my childhood, about my dreams for the company. He listened in a way that most people do not. Not just waiting for his turn to speak, but actually hearing what I was saying. "Can I ask you something personal?" he said one day about 3 months in. We were sitting on a bench after a workout. I was trying to catch my breath. "Depends on what it is." "Why do you drive that old Honda? It has to be at least 12 years old." I smiled. Most people did not notice my car. Or if they did, they assumed I was the help. It was Richard's, his first car when we started the company. He called it his lucky charm. I traced my finger along the edge of my water bottle. "I cannot bring myself to get rid of it." "That is beautiful," Ryan said. "Most people would buy something flashy, show off their success." "I have nothing to prove to anyone." "No, you do not." I did not realize what was happening. I did not see the trap being set. I just knew that I looked forward to seeing Ryan, that I smiled when his name popped up on my phone, that I felt for the first time in years like maybe life was not over after all. My best friend Sarah tried to warn me. We were at lunch one afternoon about 4 months after I started training with Ryan. Sarah put down her fork and looked at me with that expression she gets when she is about to say something I do not want to hear. "Maggie, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "When am I not honest with you? What is going on with you and that trainer?" My face got hot. "Nothing. He is just my trainer." "Maggie, I have known you for 30 years. You light up when you talk about him. You check your phone constantly. You have lost weight and started wearing makeup to the gym. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. I am not judging. I just want to make sure you know what you are doing. He is 26 years younger than me, Sarah. I am not stupid. I never said you were stupid. I said I am worried about you. There is nothing to worry about. Ryan is a kind young man who helps me with my workouts. That is all. Sarah did not look convinced, but she let it go. I should have listened to her. God, I should have listened. 2 weeks later, Ryan asked me to dinner, not as client and trainer, as a date. I said no. Of course I said no. It was ridiculous, inappropriate. What would people think? But Ryan did not give up. Maggie, I know this is unconventional. I know people will talk, but I have never felt this way about anyone before. When you walk into the gym, my whole day gets better. When you laugh, I forget everything else exists. He took my hand. His touch sent electricity up my arm. Just give me one chance. One dinner. If you feel nothing, I will never bring it up again. I should have said no. I said yes. That dinner turned into a second date. The second date turned into a third. Within 2 months, I was falling in love with Ryan Mitchell. He was everything Richard was not. Young, energetic, spontaneous. He made me feel desired in a way I had not felt in decades. He looked at me like I was the most beautiful woman in the world, even when I had no makeup on, even when I was tired and stressed and feeling every single one of my 56 years. I do not care about your age, he told me one night. We were sitting on my patio watching the sunset. I do not care what anyone thinks. I love you, Maggie. I love your strength and your kindness and your beautiful soul. Ryan, I am old enough to be your mother. So what age is just a number? What matters is how you make me feel, and you make me feel like I can do anything. He cupped my face in his hands. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to grow old with you. I cried. I cried like I had not cried since Richard's funeral. Because here was this beautiful young man offering me a second chance at love, a second chance at happiness. And I wanted it. God help me, I wanted it so badly. 6 months later, Ryan proposed. We were on the beach. He got down on one knee. He pulled out a ring that I knew must have cost him months of savings. Margaret Thompson, will you marry me? I said yes. The wedding was small, just close friends and family. Ryan's sister Jessica flew in from Michigan. She was quiet, kept to herself mostly. I tried to make her feel welcome, but she seemed uncomfortable around me. She is just shy, Ryan explained. She will warm up to you. I did not think much of it. I was too happy to worry. The first year was everything I dreamed of. Ryan moved into my house. He cooked dinner, rubbed my feet after long days held me when memories of Richard made me cry. He made me laugh again. He made me feel young again. But then things started to change, small things at first. So small I almost did not notice. Ryan started asking questions about my finances. How much was the company worth? What were my investments? How did my will work? I just want to understand your world, he said when I looked surprised. I want to be your partner in everything. I believed him. Why would I not believe my own husband? Then he started staying up late, always on his phone, always in the other room. When I asked who he was talking to, he said, "Gym friends, work stuff, nothing important." But his phone was always face down. His texts were always hidden. And sometimes late at night, I heard him laughing in a way I did not recognize. Cold, sharp, not the warm laugh I had fallen in love with. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that this was just what marriage was like, that Richard and I had our secrets too. I was lying to myself. The night I discovered the truth started like any other night. I had a headache. I took some medication and fell asleep on the couch around 9 o'clock, or at least I thought I was asleep. I was in that strange space between waking and dreaming where sounds float around you but you cannot quite open your eyes. I heard Ryan's voice, low, careful, like he was trying not to wake me. Yeah, I am looking at it now. A pause. He was on the phone. 47 million, give or take. The house alone is worth 8. And the company, he whistled. We hit the jackpot, Jessica. My blood went cold. Of course, she does not suspect anything. She is completely in love with me. It is pathetic, really. This desperate old woman so lonely that she married a guy half her age. He laughed. That cold, sharp laugh. A few more months and everything will be ours. I just need to get her to update her will. I stopped breathing. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he would hear it. No, I have not pushed yet. I have to be careful. Cannot make her suspicious. But do not worry, I know what I am doing. Remember Linda in Texas, Barbara in Florida? This is even easier. Another laugh. I will call you tomorrow. Love you, sis. The phone clicked off. I heard his footsteps coming closer. I kept my eyes closed, kept my breathing slow and steady, even though everything inside me was screaming. He leaned down and kissed my forehead. Sleep tight, old woman, he whispered. Your money is going to buy me a very nice life. Then he walked away humming softly like he did not have a care in the world. I lay there for hours. I could not move, could not think, could not process what I had just heard. Everything was a lie. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered I love you, all of it was fake. A performance, a long con designed to steal everything I had. He did not love me. He never loved me. I was just a mark, a target. A rich, lonely, stupid old woman who was desperate enough to believe that a beautiful young man could actually want her. I thought about Richard, about the promise I made him. Do not close your heart, he said. Let someone in. So I let someone in. I opened my heart wide, and Ryan Mitchell walked right in and ripped it to shreds. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to walk into that bedroom and confront him, throw things at him, watch him squirm as I exposed his lies. But I did not do any of those things, because underneath the pain and the betrayal, something else was rising. Something cold, something sharp, something that I had not felt in a very long time. Rage. Pure, focused, absolutely ruthless rage. Ryan Mitchell thought he could destroy me. He thought I was weak. He thought I was just another lonely widow who would fall apart when he was done with me. He had no idea who he was dealing with. I was Margaret Thompson. I had built an empire from nothing. I had survived 30 years in a cutthroat business. I had buried the love of my life and kept going. I was not going to let some two-bit con artist take me down. If Ryan wanted to play games, fine, we would play. But the rules were about to change. The next morning, I woke up before him. I made coffee just like always. I smiled when he came downstairs, kissed his cheek, asked if he slept well. Like a baby, he said, pulling me close. I always sleep well when you are next to me. I wanted to vomit, but I smiled. I have some errands to run today. I will be home late. No problem. I have clients until 6 anyway. I drove downtown to Tom Williams's office. Tom had been Richard's lawyer for 30 years. He was one of the only people in the world I trusted completely. When I walked into his office, he stood up immediately. Maggie, what is wrong? You look like you have seen a ghost. Close the door, Tom. I need your help. I told him everything, every word I had heard, every detail about Ryan's phone call with his sister. When I finished, Tom's face was pale. My God, Maggie, I had no idea. Neither did I, but now I do. What do you want to do? I can start divorce proceedings today. We can protect as many assets as possible. No, Tom blinked. No. Divorce is too easy. California is a community property state. He will get lawyers, drag things out, play the victim. My voice was steady, hard. I want him to get nothing, Tom. I want him to regret the day he ever heard my name. I want to destroy him so completely that he will never be able to do this to another woman again. Tom stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly he smiled. Richard always said you were the smartest person he ever met. What do you have in mind? First, I need evidence. Real evidence, not just what I overheard. I pulled out a notepad. And I need to know everything about Ryan Mitchell, his past, his sister, those other women he mentioned, Linda in Texas, Barbara in Florida. I need to find them. I have a private investigator, Marcus Reed, best in the business. Hire him. Money is no object. What else? I need to update my will. Tom's eyebrows shot up. Your will. Ryan wants me to change it in his favor, so that is exactly what I am going to do. I smiled. It felt strange on my face, sharp, almost predatory. Or at least that is what he is going to think. Tom shook his head slowly. Maggie Thompson, remind me to never get on your bad side. You are one of the good ones, Tom. You have nothing to worry about. Over the next 2 weeks, I became an actress. At home, I was the devoted, oblivious wife. I cooked Ryan's favorite meals. I laughed at his jokes. I told him how happy he made me. I let him hold me at night, let him kiss me, let him think that he had me completely fooled. Every touch made my skin crawl. Every kiss made me want to scream. But I smiled through it all, because I was gathering ammunition. I started paying attention to everything. When Ryan went to the bathroom, I checked his phone. He had a passcode, but I watched him enter it one night. His birthday. How unoriginal. The texts to Jessica were damning. She bought me a new watch today, Cartier. The old bat is really trying to keep me happy. I told her I want to start a gym. She offered to invest. LOL. That money is going straight into our account. She is getting suspicious about the phone calls. Told her it was my trainer buddy. She believed it. So gullible. I took screenshots of everything, emailed them to myself, then deleted the evidence. The private investigator Marcus delivered his report within 10 days. It was worse than I thought. Ryan Mitchell was not his real name. He was born Ryan Kowalski in Detroit. Changed his name 5 years ago, right before he started his career as a professional con artist. Jessica was his partner. His sister, yes, but also his accomplice. They had targeted wealthy older women at least twice before. Linda Morrison, Houston, Texas, 62 years old, widowed, worth about $8 million. Ryan married her, got her to change her will, then filed for divorce, claiming emotional abuse. She was too humiliated to fight. He walked away with $2.3 million. Barbara Chen, Miami, Florida, 59 years old, divorced, worth about $12 million, same pattern, marry, manipulate, divorce. He got $3.1 million that time, plus a vacation home in the Keys. Barbara had tried to kill herself 6 months after the divorce. She survived, but barely. My hands shook as I read that. This man, this monster, had destroyed lives, broken women who trusted him, taken everything from them and left them with nothing. And now he was planning to do the same to me. But he had made one critical mistake. He had underestimated me. I called Marcus back. I need contact information for Linda Morrison and Barbara Chen. Mrs. Thompson, I am not sure that is a good idea. I am not asking for your opinion. I am asking for their phone numbers. There was a pause. Then Marcus said, You will have them within the hour. I called Linda first. Her voice was tired, defeated, the voice of a woman who had given up on life. Who is this? Mrs. Morrison. My name is Margaret Thompson. You do not know me, but we have something in common. A man named Ryan Mitchell. Silence. Then quietly, Oh God, he got to you too. He tried, but I found out before he could finish the job. How I had no idea until the divorce papers showed up. By then it was too late. I got lucky. I overheard a phone call. I took a deep breath. Mrs. Morrison, I am going to stop him. But I need your help. I need you to tell me everything. Everything he did, everything he said, how he manipulated you. I need to understand how he operates. Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then she started talking. For 2 hours she told me her story, how Ryan had swept her off her feet, how he had made her feel young and beautiful and loved, how he had slowly isolated her from friends and family, how he had convinced her to change her will, add him to her bank accounts, trust him completely, and then how he had destroyed her. I lost everything, she said, her voice breaking. Not just the money, my self-respect, my confidence, my will to live. I still wake up some nights thinking about how stupid I was. You were not stupid, Linda. You were trusting. There is a difference. Is there? Yes, and I'm going to make sure Ryan Mitchell never does this to anyone else. I called Barbara next. Her story was almost identical. The same charm, the same manipulation, the same devastation. "He told me I was the love of his life," Barbara said. "He cried when he proposed. He seemed so sincere. How could I have known it was all fake?" "You could not have known. That is the point. He is a professional. This is what he does." "What are you going to do?" "I am going to destroy him." I could hear the hope in her voice, the desperate, fragile hope of someone who had lost everything. "Really? You think you can?" "I do not think. I know." The next phase of my plan required help from an unexpected source. David Chen sat across from me in his office, his face a mixture of shock and concern. "Let me make sure I understand this. You want me to tell Ryan that you are dying?" "Not exactly. I want you to run tests, real tests, and then I want you to call Ryan in for a consultation about my results." "Maggie, that is a significant deception. It could be considered medical fraud." "I am not asking you to forge documents, David. I am asking you to be vague. Run the tests, tell Ryan they are concerning, let him draw his own conclusions." "And what conclusions do you expect him to draw?" "That I am dying, that he needs to act fast if he wants to get his hands on my money." David was quiet for a long time. I could see him wrestling with it. The ethical implications, the potential consequences, the sheer audacity of what I was proposing. Finally, he spoke. "Richard would have wanted me to help you." "I know. He would have killed this man with his bare hands if he were alive." "I know that too. But Richard is gone, so I have to do this myself." David sighed. "What do you need from me?" I smiled. "Let me tell you exactly what is going to happen." A week later, I had my appointment. Full workup. Blood tests, scans, the works. All legitimate, all by the book. The next day, David called Ryan in for a consultation. I was not in the room, but David told me everything afterward. Ryan walked in with his concerned husband, face perfectly arranged, furrowed brow, tight jaw, worried eyes. "Dr. Chen, what is going on? Is Maggie okay?" David played his part flawlessly. "Mr. Mitchell, I have to be honest with you. We found some abnormalities in Maggie's tests. I do not want to alarm you prematurely, but we need to run more tests." "What kind of abnormalities? What are you saying?" "I am saying that at Maggie's age, certain conditions can progress very quickly. I want you to be prepared for difficult news." According to David, Ryan's face went through an Oscar-worthy performance. Shock, grief, despair. His eyes actually filled with tears. But underneath, David saw something else. Excitement. Hope. The barely contained joy of a predator who just spotted wounded prey. "I will take care of her, doctor. Whatever she needs, I love her so much." "I know you do, Mr. Mitchell. She is lucky to have you." When David told me about that meeting, something inside me went cold and still, the last flicker of doubt extinguished completely. This man was not misguided. He was not troubled. He was evil, pure, calculating, remorseless evil. And I was going to bring him down. The next few weeks were a careful performance. I pretended to get sicker, moved slower, ate less, complained of pain and fatigue. Ryan was attentive, of course, always bringing me tea, adjusting my pillows, asking if I needed anything. "Just rest, baby," he would say, stroking my hair. "I'm going to take care of everything." "I bet you are," I thought. "I bet you are." I caught him on the phone with Jessica constantly now, always in whispers, always when he thought I was asleep or too weak to notice. "The doctor says it could be weeks. She is updating her will next Tuesday, I made sure of it. Just be patient, we are almost there." Every word was another nail in his coffin. I let him see me sign the new will. Tom brought over the documents. Ryan hovered nearby, pretending to be supportive. "You do not have to do this now, baby. You should be resting. I want to make sure you are taken care of. You have given me so much happiness, Ryan. I want you to have everything when I am gone." His eyes actually glistened with tears. It was an incredible performance. "I do not want your money. I just want you. I would give anything to have you healthy again." "I know, sweetheart, but this is what I want." I signed the papers. Tom witnessed them, and Ryan Mitchell thought he had won. What he did not know was that the will was a trap. Buried in the legal language was a clause, a tiny, almost invisible clause that Tom and I had crafted very carefully, a clause that would activate under specific circumstances, circumstances that Ryan was about to create. 3 days before the end, I staged a collapse, right in the living room, in front of Ryan. I clutched my chest, gasped for air, and crumpled to the floor. Ryan called 911. He was crying, shaking the picture of a devoted husband in crisis. The paramedics came. I was loaded into an ambulance. Ryan followed in his car. At the hospital, David delivered the final piece of the puzzle. "Mr. Mitchell, I am so sorry. The cancer has spread much faster than we anticipated. She is in the final stages now." "How long?" Ryan whispered. 3 days. Maybe 5 if we are lucky. I am so sorry." Ryan collapsed into a chair, face in his hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. "Can I see her?" "Of course. She is sedated right now, but she should wake up in a few hours. You can sit with her." Ryan came to my room. He sat in the chair beside my bed. He took my hand in his. And then when he thought I was completely unconscious, he showed me who he really was. He leaned close to my ear. His breath was warm against my skin. "Only 3 days, baby. Just 3 more days, and finally, everything is mine." He sat back. That smile spread across his face, that beautiful, devastating smile. "Thanks for being so gullible, Maggie. You made this almost too easy. You were so desperate for love that you believed everything I said. Pathetic, really. A woman your age should have known better." He laughed softly. "Do not worry, I will spend your money well. Jessica and I have big plans. Maybe I will buy a boat. I always wanted a boat. And a house in the Hamptons. Oh, and I am definitely getting a new car. That Honda of yours is embarrassing." He squeezed my hand. The gesture was almost tender. "Sweet dreams, old woman. These are your last few days on earth. But do not be sad. You got 2 years with a man like me. Most women would kill for that." He stood up, stretched, and walked toward the door. "I will be back tomorrow. Got to keep up appearances, the grieving husband and all that." The door clicked shut behind him. I lay there in the silence, my heart pounding, my mind crystal clear. He did not know about the recording device hidden in my hospital gown. He did not know that every word he just said was being captured on audio and video. He did not know about the hidden cameras in the room that Tom had arranged. He did not know that Linda and Barbara had given written statements and were prepared to testify. He did not know that the will he thought he was inheriting was actually a trap that would trigger the moment he tried to claim it. And he definitely did not know what was coming in 3 days. Ryan Mitchell thought he had won. He thought he had played the game perfectly. He thought I was just another victim, another broken woman he could discard after he had taken everything. But I was not broken. I was waiting. In 3 days, Ryan Mitchell's entire world was going to collapse. Everything he had worked for, schemed for, lied for, was going to turn to ash in his hands. But he did not know that yet. For now, he thought he was 3 days away from being a millionaire, and that made what was coming so much sweeter. I lay in that hospital bed, listening to the steady beep of the machines, and I let myself smile. Just 3 more days. And then Ryan Mitchell was going to learn what happens when you underestimate a woman like me. The next morning, I opened my eyes to find Ryan sitting beside my bed holding a bouquet of white roses, my favorite flowers. Of course he remembered. He remembered everything that could be used to manipulate me. "Good morning, beautiful," he said softly. His voice was tender. His eyes were warm. If I did not know the truth, I would have believed every word. "How are you feeling?" I let my voice come out weak and tired. "Not great. Everything hurts." "I know, baby. I know." He leaned forward and kissed my forehead, the same forehead he had kissed last night after telling me I was pathetic. "But I am here. I am not going anywhere. We are going to get through this together." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to grab him by the throat and tell him exactly what I thought of him. But I kept my face soft, grateful, the face of a dying woman who believed her husband loved her. "Thank you, Ryan. I do not know what I would do without you. You will never have to find out. He squeezed my hand. I talked to Dr. Chen this morning. He said you can go home tomorrow if you want. Spend your time somewhere comfortable. He almost slipped. He almost said spend your last days. But he caught himself, kept the mask in place. I would like that, I said. I want to be in our home, in our bed. Then that is where you will be. I will take care of everything. He stayed with me for 3 hours that morning, read to me from a book I had mentioned liking months ago, fed me soup, adjusted my pillows. The performance was flawless. If there were hidden cameras in this room and there were anyone watching, would see a devoted husband caring for his dying wife. But I knew the truth, and soon everyone else would too. Around noon, Ryan said he needed to step out, make some calls, handle some things at the gym. Are you sure you will be okay alone? He asked. I will be fine. Go. I know you have responsibilities. Nothing is more important than you. I know, sweetheart, but I need to rest anyway. Go handle your business. Come back tonight. He kissed me again and left. The moment the door closed, I sat up in bed. David Chen walked in 2 minutes later. He is gone. Just left. We have maybe 4 hours before he comes back. David nodded and handed me my phone. Tom called twice while Ryan was here. He says everything is in place. Good. I dialed Tom's number. He picked up on the first ring. Maggie, how are you holding up? Better than Ryan thinks. What is the status? Linda and Barbara are both flying in tomorrow. They will be here for the reading. The reading. I told Ryan that you requested a formal will reading 3 days from now. Said it was a tradition in your family that Richard did the same thing before he passed. Ryan bought it completely. He thinks he is walking into his payday. I smiled. It was not a nice smile. Perfect. What about the other arrangements? Detective Morrison from the Santa Barbara Police Department is on board. I showed him the evidence we have gathered. The recordings, the texts, the statements from Linda and Barbara. He is very interested in Mr. Mitchell. Interested enough to make an arrest. More than enough. We have him on fraud conspiracy and potentially coercion. If Linda and Barbara's cases can be reopened, he is looking at serious time. I closed my eyes for a moment. This was really happening. After weeks of planning, of pretending, of swallowing my rage every time Ryan touched me, we were finally approaching the end. What about Jessica? I asked. That is where it gets interesting. Tom paused. Marcus did some more digging. Turns out Jessica has been getting nervous. She called Ryan 3 times yesterday and each call got more heated. Nervous about what? About you, about how smoothly this is going. Apparently she thinks something is wrong. She told Ryan you have been too calm, too accepting. She said, and I quote, "Something feels off. That woman built a real estate empire. She is not stupid." I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. Smart girl. Too bad her brother did not listen. He told her she was being paranoid, said you were just a lonely old woman who was too in love to see the truth. Of course he did. I gripped the phone tighter. Is there any chance she will warn him? Pull out before we spring the trap? Marcus has someone watching her. If she makes any move, we will know about it. Good. I do not want either of them slipping away. I hung up and lay back against the pillows. 2 more days. Just 2 more days of pretending, and then Ryan Mitchell would learn the true cost of underestimating me. That night, Ryan came back to the hospital with dinner from my favorite restaurant. Grilled salmon, asparagus, a slice of chocolate cake. I know you cannot eat much, he said, setting up the food on my tray table, but I wanted you to have something nice. You are too good to me, Ryan. I am not good enough. You deserve so much more than I can give you. He looked down at his hands. When he looked back up, his eyes were wet. I keep thinking about all the things we were supposed to do together, the trips we planned, the life we were building, and now... He could not finish the sentence, or pretended he could not. We had 2 beautiful years, I said softly. That is more than some people get in a lifetime. It is not enough. It will never be enough. He took my hand and pressed it to his lips. I love you, Maggie. I need you to know that. Whatever happens, I love you. I looked at this man, this beautiful, lying, heartless man, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I know you do, sweetheart. I have always known. He smiled. That smile. The one that used to make my heart flutter. Now, it just made my stomach turn. There is something I need to tell you, he said. I kept my face neutral. What is it? I have been thinking about the future, about what happens after. He swallowed hard. I want you to know that I am going to honor your memory. I am going to use everything you leave me to do good in the world. Start that gym I always talked about. Help people. Make you proud. The audacity, the sheer breathtaking audacity. That sounds wonderful, Ryan. You have such a good heart. I learned from the best. He kissed my hand again. Get some rest. I will be here when you wake up. I closed my eyes and pretended to drift off. A few minutes later, I heard him move to the chair by the window, then the soft tap of his fingers on his phone screen. I cracked my eyes open just enough to watch him. He was texting someone, smiling at the screen. His whole body language was different now that he thought I was asleep, relaxed, excited, like a kid counting down to Christmas morning. I heard the soft whoosh of a sent message, then another. Then he put the phone away and leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling with a satisfied expression. 2 more days, I thought. Enjoy them while you can. The next morning, David officially discharged me from the hospital. Ryan was there with a wheelchair ready to take me home. I can walk, I protested weakly. No way! Doctor's orders, let me take care of you. He wheeled me out to the car, lifted me gently into the passenger seat, buckled my seatbelt like I was a child. Every gesture was perfect. Every touch was tender. The nurses watched us go with misty eyes. What a wonderful husband, I heard one of them say. She is so lucky to have him. Lucky. Yes, that was one word for it. The drive home was quiet. Ryan held my hand the whole way, only letting go to shift gears. He kept glancing at me with that concerned expression, that loving gaze. Are you comfortable? Do you need me to adjust the air conditioning? Are you in pain? I am fine, Ryan, just tired. We will be home soon. I set up the bedroom exactly how you like it. Extra pillows, fresh flowers, your favorite blanket. You think of everything. I try. He lifted my hand to his lips. I want your last. I want you to be comfortable. That is all that matters to me. When we got home, he carried me inside. Actually carried me like a groom carrying his bride over the threshold. The symbolism was not lost on me. He laid me gently on the bed and tucked the blanket around me. There. Is that better? Much better. Thank you, sweetheart. I am going to make you some tea. Just rest. I will be right back. He left the room. I heard his footsteps going down the stairs, then the sound of the kettle being filled. The moment I was alone, I reached under my pillow. My phone was there right where I had hidden it before going to the hospital. I had a text from Tom. Everything is set for tomorrow. Linda and Barbara arrived this morning. Detective Morrison will be on standby. Are you ready? I typed back quickly. Ready. See you at 2 o'clock. I deleted the message thread and slid the phone back under my pillow just as Ryan's footsteps came back up the stairs. Here you go, he said, handing me a cup of chamomile tea. Careful, it is hot. Thank you. I took a small sip. Ryan, can I ask you something? Anything. When I am gone, what are you going to do? His face fell, the perfect expression of grief. Maggie, I do not want to think about that. I need to know. It is important to me. Will you be okay? He sat on the edge of the bed and took my hand. Honestly, I do not know. You are my whole world, Maggie. I do not know who I am without you. But you will move on eventually. You are young. You have your whole life ahead of you. I do not want a life without you. That is sweet, but it is not realistic. I want you to find happiness again, Ryan. I want you to fall in love, get married, have children, live the life you deserve. He was quiet for a moment. I could almost see the wheels turning in his head. Was this a test? Was I suspicious? How should he respond? Maybe someday, he finally said, But not for a long time. I need to grieve. I need to honor what we had. Promise me you will take care of yourself. I promise. He squeezed my hand. I promise, Maggie. That night, I pretended to fall asleep early. Ryan went downstairs to watch television, or so he said. I heard his voice through the floor, muffled but distinct. He was on the phone again. I slipped out of bed, moving silently to the top of the stairs. I could hear him more clearly now. Tomorrow at 2, she said. Some kind of family tradition. The lawyer reads the will before the person dies so they can hear it one last time. He laughed. I know it is weird. Rich people stuff. But who cares? Tomorrow I find out exactly what I'm getting. A pause. Jessica's voice tinny through the phone speaker. Everything. She left me everything. The house, the company, the investments, all of it. She showed me the will herself. Another pause. No, I am not nervous. Why would I be nervous? She is dying, Jess. She has maybe 2 days left. The doctor said so himself. There is nothing that can go wrong at this point. I smiled in the darkness at the top of the stairs. Nothing can go wrong. Famous last words. Just be ready, Ryan continued. As soon as the reading is done, we need to move fast. I want to list the house by the end of the week, and I need you to call that broker in LA, the one with the penthouse listings. Another pause. Then Ryan laughed again. I know. 2 years of putting up with that old woman, and it is finally paying off. I deserve a vacation. Maybe the Maldives or Bora Bora. Somewhere with a beach and no one who knows my name. I had heard enough. I crept back to bed and closed my eyes. Tomorrow. Everything would happen tomorrow. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows and Ryan standing over me with a breakfast tray. Good morning, beautiful. I made your favorite, Eggs Benedict with smoked salmon. I pushed myself up against the pillows, letting my movements be slow and painful. You are spoiling me. You deserve to be spoiled. He set the tray on my lap. Big day today. The lawyer is coming at 2. I know. I am glad you will be there. I want you to hear how much I am leaving you. Something flickered in his eyes. Greed barely concealed. Maggie, you do not have to. I want to. You are my husband. Everything I have should go to you. I reached up and touched his face. You have made me so happy, Ryan. These last 2 years have been the best of my life since Richard passed. You made me happy too, Maggie. Happier than I ever thought possible. The lies rolled off his tongue so smoothly. I wondered if he even remembered what the truth felt like. Help me get dressed, I asked. I want to look nice for the reading. Of course. What do you want to wear? The blue dress, the one I wore on our first anniversary. He found the dress in the closet and helped me into it. His hands were gentle, careful. The hands of a loving husband tending to his dying wife. No one watching would ever suspect the truth. By 1:30, I was dressed and seated in the living room. Ryan was beside me on the couch, holding my hand. He kept checking his watch, kept glancing at the door. Nervous? I asked. What? No. Just, I want everything to go smoothly, for your sake. It will. Tom is very professional. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Ryan jumped up to answer it. Tom walked in first, carrying his briefcase. Behind him came 2 women I had never met in person but recognized from photographs. Linda Morrison, 64 years old now. Gray hair, tired eyes. The weight of what Ryan had done to her was visible in every line on her face. Barbara Chen, 61, thinner than her photos. She had the look of someone who had been through hell and barely survived. Ryan froze when he saw them. Maggie, who are these people? Oh, I forgot to mention, I said, letting my voice stay weak and soft. I invited some guests. Linda, Barbara, please come in, have a seat. The color drained from Ryan's face. Linda, Barbara, what are you... Do you know these women, Ryan? I asked innocently. No, I have never seen them before in my life. Really? That is strange, because they seem to know you very well. I turned to Tom. Why don't you begin? I am feeling a bit tired and I want to get through this while I still have the energy. Tom nodded and opened his briefcase. He pulled out a thick folder and set it on the coffee table. Before we read the will, there are some matters that need to be addressed." His voice was calm, professional, the voice of a man who had been a lawyer for 40 years. "Mr. Mitchell, please sit down." Ryan did not move. His eyes were darting between Linda Barbara and the door. "Ryan," I said sharply, "sit down." He sat. His hands were trembling. "Let me be direct," Tom said. "We know who you are, Mr. Mitchell. Or should I say Mr. Kowalski. We know what you did to Mrs. Morrison in Texas. We know what you did to Mrs. Chen in Florida. And we know exactly what you plan to do to Mrs. Thompson." Ryan's face went white. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Yes, you do." I sat up straighter, letting the weakness fall away from my voice. "I heard you, Ryan. That night on the couch when you thought I was asleep. I heard every word you said to Jessica. Maggie, whatever you think you heard. Oh, $47 million, give or take. That is what you said. This desperate old woman so lonely that she married a guy half her age. Does that sound familiar?" Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I also heard what you said in my hospital room, when you thought I was unconscious." I pulled out my phone and pressed play. Ryan's voice filled the room. "Only 3 days, baby. Just 3 more days, and finally, everything is mine. Thanks for being so gullible, Maggie." The recording continued. Every horrible word, every cruel laugh, every contemptuous observation about the stupid old woman who believed he loved her. When it finished, the room was silent. Linda was crying quietly. Barbara's hands were clenched into fists. Tom's face was stone. And Ryan looked like a man watching his entire world collapse. "That is not... I was just... Maggie, please let me explain." "Explain what?" My voice was ice. "Explain how you targeted me, how you spent 2 years pretending to love me so you could steal my money, how you planned to let me die thinking I was loved when really I was just your latest victim." "It was not like that. I did love you. I do love you. Do not." I stood up from the couch. My legs were steady. My voice was strong. "Do not you dare say those words to me. Not after what you did. Not after what you did to Linda and Barbara and God knows how many others." "Mrs. Thompson is not dying," Tom said calmly. "The cancer diagnosis was fabricated, a test to see how you would respond when you thought your payday was approaching." "And you responded exactly as we expected," I said. "You got excited. You called your sister to celebrate. You started planning how to spend my money before I was even cold." Ryan stood up abruptly. "I need to go. I need to—" "Sit down, Mr. Mitchell." A new voice. We all turned to see Detective Morrison stepping through the front door, 2 uniformed officers behind him. "Ryan Mitchell, you are under arrest for fraud conspiracy to commit fraud and financial exploitation of vulnerable adults." The detective pulled out handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Ryan tried to run. He actually tried to run. He got about 3 steps before one of the officers tackled him to the ground. "Get off me! This is a mistake. Maggie, tell them this is a mistake." I walked over and stood above him. This man I had loved, this man I had trusted, this man who had looked me in the eyes and told me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. "The only mistake," I said quietly, "was yours. You thought I was weak. You thought I was desperate. You thought I was just another lonely widow you could manipulate and discard." I leaned down so my face was close to his. "You were wrong." The officers hauled him to his feet. His face was red. His eyes were wild. "You will regret this, Maggie. I will get a lawyer. I will fight this. You cannot prove anything." "Actually, we can," Tom said. "We have recordings of your conversations with your sister. We have text messages from your phone. We have sworn statements from Mrs. Morrison and Mrs. Chen detailing your previous crimes. And we have testimony from Dr. Chen about how you reacted to your wife's fake diagnosis. Additionally," Detective Morrison added, "your sister was taken into custody about 30 minutes ago. She is being very cooperative. It seems she has a lot to say about your operation." Ryan's face crumbled. The charming mask finally fell away completely, and underneath was nothing. Just emptiness. A hollow man who had spent so long pretending to be human that he had forgotten how to actually be one. "Get him out of my house," I said. The officers dragged him toward the door. He twisted around, trying to look at me one last time. "Maggie, please. I did love you. In my own way, I really did. Take him away." The door closed behind them. The room was quiet. Then Linda Morrison stood up, walked over to me, and wrapped her arms around me. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Barbara joined us. We stood there, 3 women who had been victimized by the same man, holding each other as years of pain and shame and anger finally began to release. "He can never hurt anyone again," I said. "That is what matters. He can never do this to another woman." "Because of you," Barbara said. "Because you were strong enough to fight back." I thought about Richard, about his last words to me. "Do not close your heart. Let someone in." I had let someone in, and it had nearly destroyed me. But it had also shown me something important. I was not the weak, desperate, foolish woman Ryan thought I was. I was Margaret Thompson. I had built an empire. I had survived loss and betrayal and heartbreak, and I had taken down a predator who had spent years destroying lives. Tom put his hand on my shoulder. "It is over, Maggie. You did it." I looked around my living room, at Linda and Barbara still crying with relief, at Tom, loyal and steadfast as always, at the door through which Ryan Mitchell had just been dragged to face justice. It was over. 2 years of lies, of manipulation, of playing a role I hated. All of it was finally over. But as I stood there, I realized something else. This was not just an ending. It was a beginning. I was 58 years old. I had more money than I could ever spend. I had friends who loved me, and I had just discovered a strength inside myself that I never knew existed. Ryan Mitchell had tried to break me. Instead, he had shown me exactly who I was. And who I was, it turned out, was someone you should never underestimate. I walked to the window and watched the police car drive away, carrying the man who had pretended to love me to a future behind bars. "Goodbye, Ryan," I whispered. "I hope you enjoy your new life." Then I turned around, took a deep breath, and started planning what I was going to do with the rest of mine. Because I was Margaret Thompson. I had survived my husband's death. I had survived a con man who wanted to steal everything I had. And I was still standing. I was still standing, and I was just getting started. The police car disappeared around the corner, and I stood at the window for a long time watching the empty street. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, not from weakness. From the release of 2 years of tension finally letting go. Linda touched my arm. "Maggie, are you okay?" I turned to look at her. This woman I had never met in person until today. This woman who had been destroyed by the same man who tried to destroy me. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was something else there too. Hope, relief, the beginning of healing. "I am better than okay," I said. "I am free." Barbara was sitting on the couch, her hands clasped in her lap. She looked up at me with an expression I could not quite read. "I never thought this day would come," she said quietly. "After what he did to me, I thought he would just keep doing it forever, getting away with it, hurting women like us." "He picked the wrong woman this time," Tom said. He was packing up his briefcase, organizing the documents that had just ended Ryan Mitchell's career as a con artist. "Maggie is not someone you underestimate." I almost was, though. I sat down in the chair across from Barbara. I almost fell for it completely. If I had not heard that phone call, if I had not woken up at exactly the right moment. "But you did," Linda said. "That is what matters. You heard him and you fought back." I thought about that night, the night everything changed. I had been so tired, so drowsy from the medication. If I had fallen just a little deeper into sleep, I would never have heard Ryan's voice. I would never have known the truth until it was too late. "Can I ask you something?" Barbara said. "Of course." "When you found out, when you heard what he really thought of you, how did you keep going? How did you pretend everything was normal? I considered the question carefully. It was something I had asked myself many times over the past few weeks. I thought about Richard, I said finally. My first husband. He died 4 years ago, and losing him nearly killed me. I spent 2 years barely surviving, and then Ryan came along and I thought I had found happiness again. I paused, feeling the familiar ache in my chest. When I found out Ryan was lying, I had a choice. I could fall apart again. I could let another man destroy me, or I could fight. I looked at Barbara, then at Linda. I chose to fight, not just for myself, but for you, for every woman he hurt, for every woman he would hurt in the future if someone did not stop him. Linda started crying again, soft, quiet tears rolling down her cheeks. I wish I had been that strong, she whispered. When I found out about Ryan, I gave up. I let him take everything. I was so ashamed. You have nothing to be ashamed of, I said firmly. He was a professional. He knew exactly how to manipulate people, how to make them trust him, how to make them love him. She is right, Tom added. Men like Ryan Mitchell study their victims. They learn their weaknesses, their fears, their desires, and then they exploit every single one. The fact that he fooled you does not mean you are stupid. It means he is very, very good at what he does. Was good at what he does, I corrected. Past tense. His days of fooling anyone are over. My phone buzzed. A text from David Chen. Just heard the news. Congratulations. How are you feeling? I typed back quickly. Like I can finally breathe again. Thank you for everything, David. I could not have done this without you. Richard would be proud of you. Those words hit me harder than I expected. I felt tears prick my eyes for the first time since this whole ordeal began. Richard would be proud. Yes, I believed he would be. Tom left around 4 o'clock, promising to call me the next day with updates on Ryan's arraignment. Linda and Barbara stayed. We talked for hours, sharing our stories, comparing notes on how Ryan had targeted each of us. The patterns were chillingly similar. He always found his victims at gyms, always presented himself as a caring, attentive trainer, always remembered small details, always listened with that intense focus that made you feel like the most important person in the world. He told me I was beautiful, Linda said. I had not felt beautiful in years. My husband died, my kids were grown and gone. I was just this invisible middle-aged woman, and then Ryan came along and made me feel seen. Same thing with me, Barbara added. After my divorce, I thought no man would ever want me again. I was damaged goods, and Ryan made me believe that was not true. I nodded slowly. He knew exactly what we needed to hear, what we were desperate to believe. That is what makes him so dangerous, Linda said. He does not just take your money. He takes your faith in yourself, your ability to trust, your belief that you deserve to be loved. We were quiet for a moment, each of us lost in our own thoughts. But we are taking it back, I said finally. Starting today, we are taking back everything he stole from us. That night, after Linda and Barbara had gone to their hotel, I sat alone in my living room. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, like a dark presence had been lifted. I thought about the past 2 years, all the moments I had cherished with Ryan, the dinners, the walks on the beach, the quiet mornings in bed. I had believed those moments were real. I had treasured them like precious gems. Now I knew they were all fake. Every smile, every touch, every whispered "I love you." All of it was a performance designed to separate me from my money. It should have hurt more. I expected it to hurt more. But sitting there in the quiet of my empty house, I realized something surprising. I was not sad. I was angry. Angry at Ryan for targeting me. Angry at myself for falling for his lies. But mostly, I was angry at the injustice of it all, at the fact that men like Ryan existed in the world preying on lonely women, exploiting their need for connection. How many others were out there right now? How many women were falling in love with charming young men who saw them as nothing but ATMs? How many hearts were being broken? How many lives were being destroyed while the predators walked away with everything? I could not save them all. I knew that. But maybe I could do something. Maybe this experience, as painful as it was, could be turned into something meaningful. The idea started forming in my mind, small at first, just a whisper of a thought. But by the time I went to bed that night, it had grown into something real. I was going to create a foundation, a place where women like me, like Linda, like Barbara could find help, resources, support. A place where they could learn to recognize the warning signs before it was too late. Ryan Mitchell had tried to take everything from me. Instead, he had given me a purpose. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Ryan's arraignment happened 3 days after his arrest. He pleaded not guilty, of course. His lawyer argued that it was all a misunderstanding, that Ryan genuinely loved me, that the recordings had been taken out of context. I sat in the courtroom and watched him lie through his teeth. He even managed to produce tears dabbing at his eyes with a tissue as he talked about how much our marriage meant to him. The judge was not impressed. Neither was the prosecutor, who had spent the past 72 hours building a case that would be nearly impossible to beat. Your Honor, the defendant has a documented history of targeting wealthy older women for financial exploitation. We have testimony from 2 previous victims, extensive recordings of the defendant discussing his plans to steal from Mrs. Thompson, and evidence of a coordinated scheme with his sister Jessica Mitchell, who is facing her own charges. Ryan's bail was set at $2 million. He could not pay it. For the first time since I had known him, I saw real fear in his eyes as the bailiff led him away. Good. Let him be afraid. Let him know what it feels like to be helpless. Jessica's interrogation had been even more revealing than we expected. Faced with serious prison time, she had decided to save herself by giving up everything. Detective Morrison called me the day after the arraignment to share what she had said. She gave us names, he told me. 4 other women besides you, Linda and Barbara. 4 women who never reported what happened because they were too ashamed. Can you contact them? We already have. 3 of them are willing to testify. The 4th passed away last year. He paused. Heart attack. Her daughter says she never recovered from what Ryan did to her. I closed my eyes. A woman had died because of him. Because of the stress, the shame, the heartbreak of being used by someone she trusted. We are going to bury him, I said quietly. He is never getting out of prison. That is the plan, Mrs. Thompson. That is absolutely the plan. Tom came by a few days later with paperwork for me to sign. The divorce petition. It felt strange signing documents to end a marriage that had never really existed. This should be straightforward, Tom said. Given the circumstances, no judge is going to award him anything. In fact, you may be able to recover some of the money he spent during the marriage. I do not care about the money. I know, but it is the principle of the thing. I signed the papers and pushed them across the table. What happens now? Now we wait. The criminal trial will take a few months to get started. In the meantime, Ryan sits in jail unable to make bail. His assets, what little he has, will be frozen. And Jessica will be busy cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. She is getting a deal, a small one, 5 to 7 years instead of 10 to 15. She is the key to making sure Ryan goes away for as long as possible. Tom shrugged. It is not ideal, but sometimes you have to compromise to get the bigger fish. I thought about Jessica. I had only met her twice during my marriage to Ryan. She had seemed shy, uncomfortable, hardly the criminal mastermind her brother was. But she had been part of this from the beginning. She had helped him plan it, helped him execute it, helped him destroy lives. I hope she rots in prison, I said. Tom did not argue. A month after Ryan's arrest, I launched the Thompson Foundation. It was small at first, just a website, a hotline, and a handful of volunteers. But word spread quickly. Women who had been victims of romance scams started reaching out. Some wanted to share their stories. Some wanted advice on how to recognize warning signs. Some just wanted to know they were not alone. Linda and Barbara became my first board members. They understood what these women were going through in a way that no one else could. We are not just helping them recover, Linda said at our first official meeting. We are helping them fight back, the way Maggie taught us to fight back. I had never thought of myself as a teacher, but looking around that room at the faces of women who had been broken and were slowly putting themselves back together, I realized that was exactly what I had become. The media picked up the story, of course. A wealthy widow who outsmarted her con artist husband. It was too good to resist. Reporters called constantly wanting interviews, wanting details, wanting the dramatic story of how I had brought Ryan Mitchell down. I refused most of them. This was not about publicity for me. It was about justice. But I did agree to one interview, a segment on a national morning show where I could talk about the foundation and the warning signs that women should look for. The host was sympathetic, but direct. Mrs. Thompson, some people might wonder how someone as successful as you could fall for a scheme like this. How did he fool you? I took a deep breath before answering. He fooled me because I wanted to be fooled. I was lonely. I missed my husband. I wanted to believe that love was possible again. I looked directly at the camera. And that is exactly what predators like Ryan count on. They find women who are vulnerable, who are grieving, who are desperate for connection, and they exploit that need ruthlessly. What would you say to women who might be in a similar situation right now? I would say, trust your instincts. If something feels too good to be true, it probably is. If a younger man suddenly falls madly in love with you and starts asking about your finances, be suspicious. I paused. And if you have already been victimized, know that it is not your fault. These men are professionals. They are very good at what they do. The shame belongs to them, not to you. The response to that interview was overwhelming. Thousands of messages poured into the Foundation's website. Women sharing their stories. Women thanking me for speaking out. Women saying they had recognized warning signs in their own relationships and were getting out before it was too late. For the first time since Richard died, I felt like my life had meaning again. 3 months after Ryan's arrest, the prosecutor called me with news. He wants to make a deal. I gripped the phone tighter. What kind of deal? He is willing to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. 15 years instead of the 25 to 30 he would likely get at trial. No. Mrs. Thompson, I said no. I want him to go to trial. I want everything he did exposed publicly. I want every woman he ever hurt to have a chance to testify against him. The prosecutor was quiet for a moment. That is your right, but I have to warn you, a trial will be difficult. You will have to testify. You will have to relive everything. His defense attorney will try to make you look foolish, gullible, maybe even complicit. I do not care. Let them try. I have nothing to hide. Are you sure about this? I thought about Linda, who still woke up crying some nights. I thought about Barbara, who had tried to kill herself after Ryan destroyed her. I thought about the woman who had died from a heart attack broken by the stress of what he had done to her. I am sure, I said, Ryan Mitchell is going to face justice, real justice, and I am going to be there to watch it happen. The trial was set for 6 months later. In the meantime, I had work to do. The Foundation was growing faster than I had anticipated. We had opened offices in 3 cities. We had partnered with law enforcement agencies to help identify potential predators. We had created educational programs that were being used by senior centers and community organizations across the country. And I had found something I never expected. Peace, not happiness exactly. The wound Ryan had inflicted was still too fresh for that. But peace. The knowledge that something good was coming out of something terrible, the understanding that my pain had purpose. Richard had told me not to close my heart. I had taken that advice and it had nearly destroyed me, but maybe I thought the lesson was not about closing or opening my heart. Maybe it was about being wise, about loving without losing myself, about trusting without being blind. I was 58 years old. I had been married twice, widowed once, and betrayed in ways I never could have imagined. I had built an empire, lost my soulmate, and taken down a predator, and I was still standing. The week before the trial, I visited Ryan in prison. I did not plan to. I had no intention of ever seeing his face again, but something was pulling me there, a need for closure that I could not quite explain. He looked different in his orange jumpsuit. Smaller somehow. The charm that had captivated me was gone, replaced by something desperate and pathetic. Maggie. His voice cracked when he saw me. You came. I sat down across from him, the glass partition between us. I needed to see you one more time, before the trial. I know you are angry. I know I hurt you. But Maggie, you have to believe me, I did care about you. It was not all a lie. Stop. What? Stop lying. That is all you know how to do, is it not? Lie, manipulate, pretend. I leaned forward. I am not here for your apologies or your excuses. I am here to tell you something. His eyes widened. For a moment, he looked almost hopeful. You thought you were going to break me, I said quietly. You thought I would crumble when you were done with me. Just like Linda, just like Barbara, just like all the others. Maggie, but you made a mistake. You underestimated me. And now you are going to spend the rest of your life paying for that mistake. His face twisted. The mask cracked, and underneath I saw the real Ryan Mitchell. Cold, angry, vicious. You think you are so smart, he hissed. You think you won. But you are still just a pathetic old woman who was desperate enough to marry a man half her age. That is what everyone is going to remember. Not your foundation. Not your revenge. Just how stupid you were. I smiled. It was not a kind smile. You know what the difference is between us, Ryan? I am going to walk out of here and live my life. I am going to help women who were hurt by people like you. I am going to make something meaningful out of this experience. I stood up from my chair. And you are going to rot in a cell for the next 20 years thinking about all the money you almost had. I turned and walked toward the door. Maggie. Maggie. I did not look back. You will regret this. You hear me? You will regret this. The door closed behind me, cutting off his shouting. I walked down the long corridor past the guards out into the bright California sunshine, and I never looked back again. Part 4. The morning of the trial, I woke up at 5 o'clock. Not from nerves exactly, more from anticipation. The feeling that something important was about to happen, something that had been building for almost a year. I dressed carefully, a navy blue suit that Richard had always loved, simple jewelry, minimal makeup. I wanted to look like exactly what I was, a successful businesswoman who had been wronged and was seeking justice. Tom picked me up at 8. How are you feeling? He asked as we drove toward the courthouse. Ready. I have been ready for this for months. The prosecutor says the case is airtight. Between your recordings, the testimony from Linda and Barbara, and everything Jessica gave them, Ryan does not have a chance. Good. That is exactly what I want to hear. The courthouse was surrounded by reporters. Word had gotten out about the trial, and the media was hungry for details. Cameras flashed as I walked up the steps, microphones shoved in my face. Mrs. Thompson, how do you feel about seeing your ex-husband in court? Mrs. Thompson, do you have any comment on Ryan Mitchell's claims that you entrapped him? I ignored them all. Tom guided me through the crowd and into the building, where the relative quiet of the hallway was a relief. Linda and Barbara were already there, sitting on a bench outside the courtroom. They stood when they saw me. We wanted to be here, Linda said, for support. All of us, Barbara added. I realized there were other women behind them, faces I recognized from the foundation. Women who had been hurt by Ryan, women who had come to watch him face justice. I hugged each of them in turn. Thank you. This means more than you know. The bailiff opened the courtroom doors at 9 o'clock sharp. We filed in and took our seats in the gallery. The prosecution team was already at their table, papers spread out conferring quietly. The defense table was empty. A few minutes later, a side door opened and Ryan was let in. He was wearing a suit now, not the orange jumpsuit I had seen him in at the prison. His lawyer had probably advised him to look presentable, but nothing could hide the pallor of his skin, the dark circles under his eyes, the nervous twitch in his jaw. He looked around the courtroom as he sat down. His eyes found mine. For a long moment we just stared at each other. He looked away first. The judge entered, and everyone rose. The proceedings began. I will not bore you with every detail of the trial. It lasted 3 weeks, and most of it was exactly what you would expect. Lawyers asking questions, witnesses testifying, evidence being presented. But there were moments that stood out, moments I will never forget. Linda taking the stand, her voice shaking as she described how Ryan had swept into her life after her husband died, how he had made her feel special, beautiful, loved, how he had convinced her to change her will, add him to her bank accounts, trust him with everything. And then one day, he told me he wanted a divorce, she said, tears streaming down her face. He said I was too old, too boring, that he had never really loved me. He said I should be grateful that he stayed as long as he did. The prosecutor handed her a tissue. "What did you do when he said that?" "I gave him what he wanted. I was so ashamed, so humiliated. I just wanted him gone, so I gave him half of everything I had." "How much was that, Mrs. Morrison?" $2.3 million. Her voice broke. "My husband worked his whole life for that money, and I gave it to a man who never loved me." I watched Ryan during Linda's testimony. He sat perfectly still, his face blank, betraying nothing. But I could see his fingers tapping against his leg under the table, nervous, agitated, good. Barbara's testimony was even more devastating. She talked about the depression that followed her divorce from Ryan, the isolation, the shame, the night she swallowed a bottle of pills and hoped she would never wake up. "If my neighbor had not found me, I would be dead," she said quietly. "Ryan Mitchell did not just take my money, he took my will to live." The courtroom was silent. Even Ryan's lawyer looked uncomfortable, but the most powerful moment came when I took the stand. I had been preparing for this for weeks, going over my testimony with the prosecutor, practicing how I would describe what happened, steeling myself for the cross-examination that would follow. But when I sat down in that witness chair and looked out at the courtroom, all the preparation fell away. This was not about performance. This was about truth. "Mrs. Thompson," the prosecutor began, "can you tell the court how you met the defendant?" I told them everything, the gym, the training sessions, the way Ryan had slowly worked his way into my life, the proposal, the wedding, the 2 years of marriage that I now knew were nothing but a long con. "When did you first suspect that something was wrong?" "I did not suspect for a long time. Ryan was very good at what he did. But about a year into our marriage, he started asking a lot of questions about my finances, my investments, my will. At first I thought he was just trying to be involved in my life. But then I noticed other things, the late-night phone calls, the texts he would hide from me, the way he would look at me sometimes when he thought I was not paying attention." "What kind of look? Like I was not a person, like I was just a means to an end?" I glanced at Ryan. He was staring at the table in front of him. "Can you tell the court about the night you discovered the defendant's true intentions?" I described that night in detail. The medication that made me drowsy, falling asleep on the couch, waking up to the sound of Ryan's voice. "What did you hear him say?" "He was talking to his sister Jessica. He said my estate was worth $47 million. He called me a desperate old woman who was so lonely that she married a man half her age. He laughed about how easy it had been to fool me." "What did you do when you heard this?" "I laid there and pretended to be asleep. I did not move, did not make a sound. And when he hung up the phone and came over to me, he leaned down and kissed my forehead and said, 'Sleep tight, old woman. Your money is going to buy me a very nice life.'" A murmur went through the courtroom. I saw several of the jurors exchange glances. "And after that night, what did you do?" "I contacted my lawyer, I hired a private investigator, and I started planning how to make sure Ryan Mitchell never did this to another woman again." The prosecutor played the recordings then. Ryan's voice filled the courtroom, describing his plans, laughing about how gullible I was talking about the money he was going to inherit. But the recording that hit the hardest was the one from the hospital. Ryan's whispered words as he held my hand, thinking I was unconscious. "Only 3 days, baby. Just 3 more days, and finally, everything is mine. Thanks for being so gullible, Maggie. You made this almost too easy." When the recording ended, the courtroom was completely silent. I looked at the jury. Several of them were staring at Ryan with expressions of pure disgust. Then came the cross-examination. Ryan's lawyer was a slick man in an expensive suit. He had been trying to poke holes in the prosecution's case all week, suggesting that the recordings were edited, that the witnesses were unreliable, that Ryan had genuinely loved me, and this was all a misunderstanding. He approached me with a sympathetic smile that did not reach his eyes. "Mrs. Thompson, I am sorry for what you have been through. This must be very difficult for you." "Thank you. I just have a few questions. You testified that you were suspicious of my client for some time before you discovered his alleged scheme. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And yet you stayed married to him. You continued to share a home with him, a bed with him. Why is that?" "Because I wanted to believe that I was wrong. I wanted to believe that the man I married actually loved me." "So you admit that you wanted to believe, that you chose to ignore warning signs because you were desperate to hold on to the relationship." I saw what he was doing, trying to paint me as a willing participant in my own deception. "I was not desperate," I said calmly. "I was in love. There is a difference." "Is there? Because from where I am sitting, it sounds like you were a lonely widow who latched onto the first attractive man who paid attention to her." "Objection," the prosecutor called. "Counsel is badgering the witness." "Sustained. Watch yourself, counselor." The lawyer nodded and tried a different approach. "Mrs. Thompson, is it not true that you fabricated an illness to test my client's loyalty?" "I arranged for my doctor to run tests and discuss concerning results with my husband. I wanted to see how he would react if he thought I was dying." "And is it not true that this so-called test was designed to entrap my client, to manipulate him into saying things that could be used against him?" "It was designed to reveal the truth, and it did. The truth as you see it." "The truth as everyone in this courtroom has now heard with their own ears." The lawyer's smile faltered. He tried a few more questions, but I answered each one calmly and directly. By the time he sat down, I could tell he knew the case was lost. Closing arguments came the next day. The prosecutor laid out the evidence, methodically connecting each piece into an undeniable picture of guilt. "Ryan Mitchell is not a man who made a mistake," she said. "He is a predator, a professional con artist who has spent years targeting vulnerable women, stealing their money, and leaving them devastated. Margaret Thompson was supposed to be his biggest score yet. $47 million taken from a grieving widow who just wanted to be loved again." She turned to look at Ryan. But Margaret Thompson was not like his other victims. She was smart. She was strong. And when she discovered what he was doing, she did not fall apart. She fought back. She gathered evidence. She built a case. And she made sure that Ryan Mitchell would never hurt another woman again. The defense's closing argument was weak. A lot of talk about reasonable doubt and different interpretations of the evidence. But it was clear from the jury's faces that they were not buying it. Deliberations lasted less than 4 hours. When the jury filed back in, I held my breath. Beside me, Linda gripped my hand. On my other side, Barbara was crying silently. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked. "We have, Your Honor." The foreman stood, a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She looked at Ryan, then at me. "On the count of fraud in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty." A cheer went up from our side of the courtroom. The judge banged his gavel for order. "On the count of conspiracy to commit fraud, we find the defendant guilty." More cheering, more banging. "On the count of financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, we find the defendant guilty." I closed my eyes. Tears were streaming down my face. Linda was sobbing. Barbara was hugging me so hard I could barely breathe. We had done it. We had actually done it. The judge thanked the jury and set a date for sentencing. As Ryan was led away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one last time. I expected to see anger in his eyes, hatred, resentment. Instead, I saw nothing, just emptiness. The hollow look of a man who had finally realized that his game was over. I did not feel sorry for him, not for a single second. 4 weeks later, I was back in the courtroom for sentencing. Ryan stood before the judge, his lawyer beside him, looking smaller than ever. The fight had gone out of him completely. He knew what was coming. "Mr. Mitchell," the judge said, "you have been found guilty of multiple counts of fraud and exploitation. Your crimes have caused immeasurable harm to multiple victims, including psychological trauma, financial devastation, and in at least one case contributed to the death of a victim. Ryan flinched at that. Good. It is the judgment of this court that you be sentenced to 25 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for at least 15 years. 25 years. I let that sink in. Ryan Mitchell was 42 years old. He would be 67 before he had any chance of getting out. His youth, his looks, his charm, all the weapons he had used against women like me would be long gone by then. Justice. Real justice. The judge continued. Additionally, you are ordered to pay restitution to all of your victims in the amount of $4.7 million. If you are unable to pay this amount, it will be garnished from any future earnings for the remainder of your life. Ryan's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a look. Mr. Mitchell, I have been on this bench for 23 years. I have seen many criminals come through my courtroom, but I have rarely seen someone as calculating, as heartless, as utterly devoid of remorse as you. The judge leaned forward. You targeted women who were grieving lonely, desperate for human connection. You made them believe they were loved, and then you destroyed them. You treated human hearts like piggy banks to be smashed open and discarded. He shook his head slowly. I hope you spend every single day of your sentence thinking about what you did. And I hope you never forget the face of Margaret Thompson, the woman who had the strength and the courage to stop you. Ryan was led away. He did not look back this time. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sunshine. Linda and Barbara were beside me. So were a dozen other women from the Foundation Women who had come to witness the end of a nightmare. Reporters swarmed around us shouting questions, but I did not hear them. I was looking up at the sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face, breathing in the clean California air. It was over. 2 years of lies, months of planning, weeks of trial. And now it was finally completely irrevocably over. Ryan Mitchell was going to prison for a quarter century. His sister Jessica had already been sentenced to 7 years. The foundation was growing every day, helping women recognize predators before it was too late. And I was still here, still standing, still fighting. Linda put her arm around my shoulders. How do you feel? I thought about the question. How did I feel? I felt tired. I felt relieved. I felt proud. But mostly I felt free. I feel like myself again, I said finally. For the first time in 2 years, I feel like Margaret Thompson. Barbara smiled. The woman who brought down Ryan Mitchell. No, I said. The woman who refused to be broken. We walked away from the courthouse together, 3 survivors who had become sisters in the fight against a common enemy. Behind us, reporters shouted questions we would never answer. Ahead of us, the future stretched out full of possibility. Ryan Mitchell had tried to destroy me. He had targeted me, manipulated me, used me, betrayed me. He had looked at me and seen nothing but a dollar sign. But he had failed. He had failed because I was stronger than he ever imagined. Because I had friends who stood by me. Because I refused to give up even when giving up would have been so much easier. He thought I was weak. He thought I was desperate. He thought I was just a lonely old woman who would believe anything a handsome man told her. He was wrong about all of it. I was Margaret Thompson. I had built an empire from nothing. I had survived the death of my soulmate. I had taken down a predator who had been hurting women for years. And I was just getting started. 6 months passed after Ryan's sentencing, and life slowly began to feel normal again, or at least a new kind of normal. The kind where I no longer woke up in the middle of the night reaching for a man who had never really been there. The kind where I could look in the mirror and not feel ashamed of what I saw. The foundation had become my whole world. We had expanded to 7 cities now. We had helped over 3,000 women recognize the warning signs of romance scams. We had partnered with banks to flag suspicious financial activity. We had even worked with dating apps to identify potential predators. But the work that meant the most to me was the support groups. Every Tuesday night, I sat in a circle with women who had been where I was. Women who had been fooled, used, discarded. Women who were trying to put their lives back together. One Tuesday in March, a new woman joined our group. She was younger than most of us, maybe 45. Her name was Christine, and she could barely look anyone in the eye. "I feel so stupid," she whispered when it was her turn to speak. "He was 20 years younger than me. I should have known. Everyone told me it was too good to be true, but I did not listen." I reached over and took her hand. "How long were you together?" 8 months. He said he loved me. He said age did not matter. He said I was the most beautiful woman he had ever met." She laughed bitterly. "And I believed him. I believed every single word." "What happened?" "He convinced me to add him to my bank accounts. For emergencies, he said. And then one morning I woke up, and he was gone, along with everything I had. $62,000, my entire retirement savings." The room was quiet. We had all heard stories like this before. We had all lived stories like this. "Christine," I said gently, "look at me." She raised her eyes reluctantly. "What happened to you is not your fault. You were targeted by a professional, someone who knew exactly what to say, exactly how to act, exactly how to make you trust him. The fact that you fell for it does not make you stupid. It makes you human." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "But I should have known better. I'm not some naive teenager. I'm a grown woman." "So am I. I am 58 years old. I have run a successful business for 30 years, and I fell for the same kind of man you did." I squeezed her hand. "The difference between us is that I got lucky. I found out the truth before he could take everything. But if I had not overheard that phone call, I would be exactly where you are right now." Christine stared at me. But you are the one who started all this. You brought down Ryan Mitchell." "I did. But before I brought him down, I loved him. I trusted him completely. I was ready to give him everything." I smiled sadly. "We are not so different, Christine. None of us are. That is why we are here. To support each other, to heal together." After the meeting, Christine approached me in the parking lot. "Mrs. Thompson, can I ask you something?" "Of course. And please call me Maggie." "Maggie," she hesitated. Do you ever miss him, Ryan? I mean, even knowing what he did?" The question caught me off guard. I had to think about it for a moment. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Not him exactly, but the person I thought he was. The man who made me laugh, who held me when I cried, who made me feel like I was not alone anymore." I shook my head. "That man never existed. He was just a character Ryan played. But I still miss him sometimes. Does that make sense?" "It makes perfect sense." Christine's eyes were wet again. "I miss Daniel every day. I know he lied to me. I know he used me. But I still miss the way he smiled at me, the way he made me feel special." "That is the cruelest part of what they do," I said. "They do not just take our money. They take our memories. They poison everything we thought was beautiful." "How do you get past it?" I thought about the question. It was something I had been wrestling with for months. "You do not get past it," I said finally. "You get through it, one day at a time. Some days are harder than others. Some days you wake up angry. Some days you wake up sad. But eventually, the good days start to outnumber the bad ones. And one morning you wake up and realize you have not thought about him in a week, then a month. Then you stop counting altogether. Is that where you are now?" "Getting there. Slowly but surely, I am getting there." I gave Christine my card and told her to call me any time, day or night. As I drove home, I thought about what she had asked me. Did I miss Ryan? The honest answer was complicated. I did not miss Ryan Mitchell. I did not miss the cold, calculating predator who had whispered horrible things in my ear while I lay in a hospital bed pretending to die. I did not miss the man who had laughed with his sister about how easy I was to fool. But I missed the illusion. I missed having someone to come home to. I missed the feeling of being loved, even if that love was never real. Richard had been gone for almost 5 years now. 5 years of sleeping alone, eating alone, watching television alone. Ryan had filled that void, even if the filling was made of lies. Now the void was back, and some nights it felt bigger than ever. I was still thinking about this when I got home. The house was dark and quiet the way it always was. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the patio watching the stars come out. My phone buzzed. A text from David Chen. "Dinner tomorrow, I have something I want to discuss with you." I typed back. "Of course. Same place as usual. Actually, I was thinking somewhere nicer. I will pick you up at 7. I stared at the message for a long moment. David and I had dinner regularly since Richard's death. He had been my doctor, my confidant, my friend. But he had never offered to pick me up before. He had never suggested somewhere nicer. 7 is fine, I wrote back. See you then. I put down the phone and took a long sip of wine. Surely it did not mean anything. David was just being nice. We were friends, nothing more. But as I sat there in the darkness, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. A flutter of anticipation, a spark of possibility. I pushed it away. I was not ready for that. After everything I had been through, I was not sure I would ever be ready for that again. But the flutter remained small and persistent, refusing to be ignored. The next evening, David arrived exactly at 7. He was wearing a suit which was unusual for him. His hair was neatly combed. He was holding a bouquet of flowers. "David, what is all this?" He smiled nervously. "Can I come in?" "Of course." I stepped aside to let him pass. "But you are making me worried. Is everything okay? Is this about a medical thing?" No, nothing like that." He handed me the flowers. "These are for you. Peonies. You mentioned once that they were your favorite." I looked at the flowers, then at David. He was fidgeting with his tie, something I had never seen him do before. "David, what is going on?" He took a deep breath. "Maggie, I have been trying to figure out how to say this for months, maybe years. And I keep chickening out because the timing is never right, because you have been through so much, because I do not want to ruin our friendship." My heart started beating faster. "Say what?" "I love you, Maggie." The words hung in the air between us. "I have loved you for a long time," he continued. "Even when Richard was alive, I admired you. And after he died, I wanted to tell you how I felt, but you were grieving, and then Ryan came along, and I thought I had lost my chance. David, please let me finish. When you told me what Ryan was doing when you asked for my help with the plan, I wanted to kill him. Not because he was a con artist, but because he was hurting you. Because he did not deserve you. Because the thought of him touching you made me sick." He stepped closer to me. "I know you have been through hell. I know you might not be ready for anything romantic. I know I am taking a huge risk by telling you this, but I could not keep it inside anymore. I had to tell you the truth." I did not know what to say. David Chen had been part of my life for over 20 years. He had been Richard's best friend, my doctor, one of the few people I trusted completely, and now he was standing in my living room confessing his love. "I do not expect anything," he said quickly, misreading my silence. "If you want to pretend this never happened, I understand. If you need time, I can wait. I just needed you to know." I looked at this man, this kind, gentle, honest man who had stood by me through everything, who had helped me bring down Ryan without asking for anything in return, who had never once tried to take advantage of my vulnerability. He was nothing like Ryan, nothing at all. "David," I said slowly, "I do not know what I feel. After everything with Ryan, I am not sure I know how to trust anyone anymore. I am not sure I know how to love." His face fell. "I understand. But," I continued, "I am willing to try if you are willing to be patient with me." Hope flickered in his eyes. "Really, really, you have been one of my closest friends for 20 years. You helped me through the worst time of my life, and I would be lying if I said I had not noticed how much I look forward to seeing you." I smiled tentatively. "Maybe there is something there. I do not know, but I am willing to find out." David's face broke into a smile. The nervous tension melted away, replaced by pure joy. "That is all I ask, Maggie. A chance. That is all I have ever wanted." We went to dinner that night, not as friends, but as something more, something undefined and tentative and fragile. David told me about his feelings, about how long he had been hiding them, about the guilt he felt for loving his best friend's wife. "Richard knew," he admitted over dessert. "What? He knew how I felt about you. He confronted me about it years ago. I thought he was going to end our friendship. What did he say? He said he could not blame me. He said you were the most incredible woman he had ever met, and any man with eyes could see that. David's voice grew thick. And then he said that if anything ever happened to him, he hoped I would take care of you. Tears sprang to my eyes. He said that he made me promise. He said he trusted me to watch over you to make sure you were happy. David reached across the table and took my hand. I tried to keep that promise, Maggie. When Ryan came along, I wanted to warn you, but I did not have any proof. I just had a bad feeling, and you seemed so happy. You should have told me. Would you have listened? I thought about it honestly. Thought about how infatuated I had been, how desperate for love. Probably not, I admitted. I was too far gone by then. That is what I was afraid of. So I just watched and waited. And when you finally came to me with the truth, I was ready to help you burn him to the ground. I laughed. It felt good to laugh. You certainly did that. We did it together. We lingered over coffee for another hour, talking about everything and nothing. It felt different from dinner with Ryan. There was no undercurrent of manipulation, no hidden agenda. Just two old friends exploring something new. When David drove me home, he walked me to the door like a perfect gentleman. Thank you for tonight, I said, for everything. Thank you for giving me a chance. And he leaned in and kissed my cheek, soft and brief and full of promise. Good night, Maggie. Good night, David. I watched him drive away, my hand pressed to my cheek where his lips had touched. It was such a small thing, such an innocent thing, but it made me feel something I had not felt in a very long time. Hope. The next few months were a slow, careful dance. David and I saw each other regularly, but we took things at a pace that felt comfortable. Dinner once a week, long phone calls, occasional walks on the beach. He never pushed, he never pressured. He let me set the boundaries and respected every single one. Are you sure this is not too slow for you? I asked him one evening. We were sitting on my patio watching the sunset. It had become our favorite thing to do together. Maggie, I have been waiting for you for 20 years. I can wait a little longer. But do you not want more? He turned to look at me. Of course I want more. I want everything with you. But I also know what you have been through. I know that trust does not come easy for you anymore. And I would rather have you slowly than not have you at all. I reached over and took his hand. How are you so patient? Because you are worth being patient for. We sat there in comfortable silence, our fingers intertwined, watching the sky turn from orange to pink to purple. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace. Linda noticed the change in me. We were having lunch one afternoon when she brought it up. You seem different lately. Different how? Lighter, happier. She narrowed her eyes. You are seeing someone. I felt my cheeks flush. Maybe. Maggie Thompson, you are blushing. Who is he? Do I know him? It is David Chen. Linda's eyes widened. Your doctor. The one who helped with the Ryan plan? The same. And how is it going? I could not stop the smile that spread across my face. It is going well, really well. Linda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I am so happy for you. You deserve this. I am scared, I admitted. After Ryan, I am not sure I trust my own judgment anymore. What if I am wrong about David too? What if this is just another mistake? Maggie, David Chen is nothing like Ryan Mitchell. He has known you for 20 years. He helped you bring down a con artist. He has never asked you for anything. Linda shook her head. If you cannot trust him, you cannot trust anyone. That is what I am afraid of, that I cannot trust anyone. You trusted me. You trusted Barbara. You trusted the women at the foundation. She smiled gently. Maybe you are better at trusting than you think. I thought about her words for a long time after that lunch. Linda was right. I had learned to trust again in small ways. The foundation had taught me that. Working with other survivors had shown me that vulnerability did not always lead to pain. That opening up did not always mean getting hurt. Maybe it was time to take a bigger leap. That weekend, I invited David over for dinner, not at a restaurant, at my house. I cooked his favorite meal, set the table with candles, put on soft music. When he arrived, he looked around with surprise. "Maggie, what is all this?" "I wanted to do something special for you." "You did not have to." "I know. I wanted to." We ate dinner together, talking and laughing and enjoying each other's company. When the meal was finished, I took his hand and led him to the living room. "David, I need to tell you something." He looked worried. "What is it?" "I love you." His breath caught. "What?" "I love you. I have been afraid to say it, afraid to feel it, afraid that if I admitted it, something would go wrong. But I cannot pretend anymore. You have been so patient with me, so kind, so understanding, and somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you." David's eyes filled with tears. He had never looked more handsome to me than in that moment. "Maggie, I have dreamed of hearing you say that. I am saying it. I love you, David Chen, and I am ready for whatever comes next." He pulled me into his arms and kissed me. Not on the cheek this time, a real kiss, deep and passionate, and full of all the feelings we had been holding back. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. "I love you too," he whispered. "I have loved you for so long." "I know, and I'm sorry it took me so long to catch up. You are worth the wait. You will always be worth the wait." We stayed up late that night talking about the future, about what we wanted, what we were afraid of, what we hoped for. For the first time since Richard died, I could imagine a life with someone else. A real life built on honesty and respect and genuine love. 6 months later, David proposed. We were on the same beach where Ryan had proposed to me years earlier. But everything about this moment was different. David did not get down on one knee or give a rehearsed speech. He simply took my hand, looked into my eyes, and asked me to spend the rest of my life with him. "I know you have been married twice before," he said. "I know this is not new territory for you, but it is new for me. And I want you to know that I will spend every single day making sure you never regret saying yes." "Yes," I said without hesitation. He blinked. "Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring on my finger. It was simple, elegant, nothing like the flashy rock Ryan had given me. It was perfect. "I love you, Maggie." "I love you too, David." We stood there on the beach holding each other as the waves crashed around us. And for the first time in years, I was not afraid of the future. The wedding was small and intimate, just close friends and family. Linda and Barbara were my bridesmaids. Tom Williams walked me down the aisle since I had no family of my own left. When I stood at the altar and looked at David, I thought about everything that had led me to this moment. Richard's death, the years of loneliness, Ryan's betrayal, the pain, the anger, the healing. All of it had led me here, to this man, to this moment, to this second chance at happiness. The officiant asked if I took David to be my husband. "I do," I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." David kissed me, and our guests erupted in applause. I looked out at the faces of the people who had supported me through everything. Linda crying happy tears, Barbara beaming, Tom dabbing at his eyes with a handkerchief. And in that moment I understood something I had been struggling to accept for years. What happened with Ryan was not the end of my story. It was just a chapter. A dark, painful chapter that had taught me more about myself than I ever wanted to know. But it was over now. A new chapter was beginning. One filled with love, with purpose, with hope. I took David's hand as we walked down the aisle together. My husband, my partner, my second chance. Ryan Mitchell had tried to destroy me. He had taken 2 years of my life poisoned. My memories made me question everything I believed about love and trust. But he had also given me something without meaning to. He had shown me my own strength. He had led me to create the foundation. He had introduced me to women who became like sisters. And in a twisted way, he had brought David and me together. I would never thank him for what he did. I would never forgive him. but I could acknowledge that something good had come from something terrible. As David and I drove away from the ceremony, I turned to look at him. This man who had waited 20 years for me. This man who had helped me heal. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how lucky I am. I am the lucky one. Let us call it even." He laughed and took my hand. We drove toward our future together, leaving the past behind. I was 60 years old. I had been married 3 times, widowed once, and betrayed in ways I never could have imagined. I had built an empire, lost my soulmate, taken down a predator, and found love again in the most unexpected place. My story was not a fairy tale. It was messy and complicated and full of pain, but it was mine, and I would not trade a single moment of it, because every moment, even the darkest ones, had led me here, to this car, to this man, to this life, and I was finally completely, unshakably happy. 3 years passed faster than I ever thought possible. 3 years of building a life with David, of growing the foundation of healing wounds I thought would never close. 3 years of learning what real love looked like, what it felt like to be with someone who wanted nothing from me except my happiness. David and I settled into a rhythm that felt natural and easy. He moved into my house, the house I had once shared with Ryan, and slowly we made it ours. New furniture, new memories, new laughter echoing through rooms that had once been filled with lies. The foundation continued to expand. We had offices in 12 cities now. We had helped over 10,000 women. We had been featured in national magazines, on television shows, in documentaries about romance scams. Our hotline received hundreds of calls every week from women who had recognized the warning signs, from women who had been victimized and needed support from families desperate to help their loved ones. Linda had become our director of outreach. She traveled the country speaking at conferences, sharing her story, training volunteers. The broken woman I had met 3 years ago was gone, replaced by someone strong and confident and full of purpose. Barbara had written a book about her experience. It had become a bestseller, and she donated every penny of the proceeds to the foundation. She told me once that writing it had been the final step in her healing, the moment when she stopped being a victim and became a survivor. And me, I had found something I never expected to find after everything I had been through. Peace. Real, lasting, unshakable peace. I was 61 years old. I had a husband who adored me, work that mattered, friends who had become family. I had faced the worst thing that could happen and come out stronger on the other side. But there was one thing I had not done. One piece of unfinished business that I had been avoiding for 3 years. I had not visited Ryan in prison. David brought it up one evening over dinner. We were sitting on the patio watching the sunset the way we always did, when he turned to me with that look he got when he had something serious on his mind. "Maggie, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Have you thought about going to see him?" I did not have to ask who he meant. "No." "Why not?" "Because I have nothing to say to him. Because seeing him would not change anything. Because he does not deserve another second of my time or attention." David nodded slowly. "All valid reasons. But I wonder if there is something else." "Like what?" "Like maybe you are afraid of what you might feel when you see him." I set down my wine glass. "What are you talking about?" "Maggie, you spent 2 years with that man. You loved him, or at least you loved the person you thought he was. And then you spent another year planning his downfall, living with him, pretending everything was normal." He reached over and took my hand. "That is a lot of emotional energy invested in one person, and I wonder if you have ever really let go of it." "I have let go. I have moved on. I have you. I know you do, and I know how much you love me. But there is a difference between moving forward and truly closing a chapter." He squeezed my hand. "I just think that maybe for your own sake, you need to look him in the eye one more time, not for revenge, not for satisfaction, just for closure." I thought about what David was saying. Part of me wanted to dismiss it, to insist that I had already found closure, that Ryan Mitchell was nothing but a distant memory. But another part of me knew he was right. There was still something there. Not love, not longing. Something darker. A knot of unresolved emotion that I had pushed down and ignored for 3 years. Every time Ryan's name came up, I felt it tighten. Every time I thought about those 2 years of lies, I felt it pulse. Maybe David was right. Maybe I needed to face it one last time. "I will think about it," I said finally. "That is all I ask." I thought about it for 2 weeks. I talked to Linda about it and Barbara. I even discussed it with my therapist, a woman I had been seeing since shortly after Ryan's arrest. Everyone said the same thing, that it was my choice, my decision, that there was no right or wrong answer, that whatever I decided, they would support me. In the end, it was a letter that made up my mind. It arrived on a Tuesday morning, forwarded from the foundation office. The return address was the state prison where Ryan was serving his sentence. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. His handwriting was the same as I remembered, neat and precise, the kind of handwriting they teach in expensive schools. "Dear Maggie," it began, "I know you probably will not read this. I know you have every reason to throw this letter away without opening it. But I had to try. I had to write this even if it never reaches you. I have been in here for 3 years now. 3 years of walls and bars and endless time to think. And I have thought about you every single day. I know what I did was unforgivable. I know I hurt you in ways that can never be undone. I know I destroyed something beautiful because I was too broken, too greedy, too hollow to recognize what I had. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not deserve forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I am sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Not because I got caught, not because I am in prison, but because I finally understand what I did to you and to all the women like you. You were never stupid, Maggie. You were never desperate or pathetic or any of the things I said about you. You were kind. You were trusting. You were brave enough to open your heart again after losing your husband, and I took advantage of that. I exploited the best parts of you for my own gain. I have had a lot of time to think about why I am the way I am, about my childhood, my father, the things that happened to me that made me think the world owed me something. I am not making excuses. There are no excuses for what I did. But I am trying to understand to become something better than the man who walked into that gym and targeted a grieving widow. I hear about your foundation sometimes. Other inmates talk about it, about the women they tried to scam, who got help because of what you built. You have saved so many people, Maggie. You turned the worst thing that ever happened to you into something that helps others. I could never do that. I do not have that kind of strength, but I am grateful that you do. If you ever want to see me, I will be here. I will be here for a long time, but I understand if you never want to look at my face again. I would not want to either. I just wanted you to know that I think about you, that I am sorry, that I hope you are happy. You deserve to be happy, Ryan. I read the letter 3 times. My hands were shaking by the end. Not from fear or anger, from something I could not quite name. I showed it to David that evening. "What do you think?" I asked after he finished reading. He set the letter down carefully. "I think he sounds sincere, but I also know he is very good at sounding sincere. That is how he fooled you in the first place. Do you think I should go see him?" David was quiet for a moment. "I think you should do whatever feels right to you, not what feels right for him or for me or for anyone else, just for you." I lay awake most of that night staring at the ceiling, turning the decision over in my mind. By morning, I had made up my mind. I was going to see Ryan one last time. The prison was a 3-hour drive from Santa Barbara. David offered to come with me, but I told him this was something I needed to do alone. He understood. He always understood. I signed in at the visitor's entrance, went through security, and was led to a small room with a table and 2 chairs. The guard told me I had 30 minutes. And then Ryan walked in. He looked different. Older, of course. His hair was gray now, his face lined in ways it had not been 3 years ago. The charm that had once radiated from him was gone, replaced by something hollower, more tired. He sat down across from me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "You came," he said finally. His voice was rougher than I remembered. "I got your letter. I did not think you would read it. I did not think you would come. Neither did I." He looked down at his hands, folded on the table in front of him. "Thank you for giving me this chance. I did not come here for you, Ryan. I came here for me." He nodded. I understand. Do you really understand anything about what you did to me? He looked up, and I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Not charm, not calculation, something that might have been genuine pain. I think I am starting to. 3 years in here with nothing but time and my own thoughts. He shook his head. I have had to face some ugly truths about myself, Maggie, things I spent my whole life avoiding. Tell me. Tell me what you have realized. Tell me what you understand now that you did not understand then. He took a deep breath. I understand that I was empty, that I had been empty my whole life, that I thought if I just had enough money, enough success, enough power, the emptiness would go away. He laughed bitterly. It never did. No matter how much I took, no matter how many people I hurt, I was still just a hollow man pretending to be real. That is a convenient realization to have after you got caught. I know how it sounds. I know you have no reason to believe me. He leaned forward. But Maggie, I want you to know something. Of all the women of everyone I hurt, you are the one I think about the most. You are the one I regret the most. Why? Because you were different. Because you were not just a mark to me, not after the first few months anyway. He swallowed hard. I know you will not believe this. I know I have no right to say it, but somewhere along the way, I started to have real feelings for you. Not enough to stop what I was doing, obviously, not enough to be honest with you, but enough that it hurt when I said those things in the hospital room, enough that part of me was relieved when you exposed me because it meant I did not have to keep lying. I stared at him. You expect me to believe that you had feelings for me after everything you said, after calling me a pathetic old woman, after laughing about how easy I was to fool? I do not expect you to believe anything. I am just telling you the truth. For once in my miserable life, I am telling someone the truth. Tears welled in his eyes. I hated myself for what I was doing to you. Every day I hated myself a little more. But I did not know how to stop. I did not know how to be anything other than what I was. That is not an excuse. I know it is not. Nothing I say is an excuse. I am not trying to excuse what I did. I am just trying to explain. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. You deserved so much better than me, Maggie. You deserved someone who could love you the way Richard loved you, the way I pretended to love you. At the mention of Richard's name, something shifted in me. Some of the anger I had been holding on to for 3 years began to loosen its grip. I found someone, I said quietly. I got married again. Ryan's eyes widened. You did. His name is David. He was Richard's best friend. He is a good man, a real man. I am glad. And he sounded like he meant it. You deserve to be happy, Maggie. I meant what I said in the letter. We sat in silence for a moment. The guard at the door shifted his weight, reminding us that time was passing. I have a question for you, I said finally. Anything. If you had not gotten caught, would you have gone through with it? Would you have taken everything and left me with nothing? Ryan did not look away. Yes, I would have. I wish I could tell you otherwise, but that would be another lie, and I am done lying. I nodded slowly. It was not the answer I wanted, but it was the answer I needed. The truth, ugly and unvarnished. Thank you for being honest. It is the least I can do. Literally the least. I stood up. The visit was almost over, and I had said what I needed to say. Or rather, I had heard what I needed to hear. Goodbye, Ryan. He stood too, chains clinking. Maggie, wait. I paused. I know this does not mean anything. I know words are cheap, especially from me. But I want you to know that you changed me. Not when you exposed me, not when you sent me to prison. Before that. When you loved me even though I did not deserve it. When you opened your heart to me even though I was planning to break it. His voice cracked. No one had ever loved me like that before, and I did not know what to do with it. So I destroyed it because that is what I do. I destroy things. I looked at this man, This broken, hollow, pathetic man who had once held my heart in his hands and crushed it deliberately, and I felt something I never expected to feel. Pity. Not forgiveness, not absolution, just pity for someone who had never learned how to be human. I hope you find peace, Ryan. Real peace, not the kind you pretend to have. I hope so too. I walked out of that room and did not look back. David was waiting for me when I got home. He did not ask how it went. He just held me while I cried. Not sad tears, not angry tears, just release. The final letting go of something I had been carrying for far too long. "Thank you," I said when the tears finally stopped. "For what?" "For knowing I needed to do that. For being patient with me. For loving me anyway." He kissed my forehead. "I will always love you anyway. That is kind of the point." I laughed through the last of my tears. "I suppose it is." That night I slept more peacefully than I had in years. The knot that had been living in my chest was finally gone. Not because Ryan had apologized, not because I had forgiven him, but because I had faced him one last time and walked away whole. He had no power over me anymore. He was just a sad man in a prison cell, serving out the consequences of his choices. And I was free. The next 5 years brought more changes than I ever could have anticipated. The foundation won national recognition for our work in preventing romance scams. We testified before Congress, helped shape new laws, trained thousands of law enforcement officers to recognize the signs of financial exploitation. Linda retired from her position as Director of Outreach, but stayed on as a board member. She met a wonderful man at one of our fundraising events, a widower who had lost his wife to cancer. They were married last spring in a beautiful ceremony that had us all in tears. Barbara continued to write and speak about her experiences. Her second book became required reading in sociology courses across the country. She told me once that she finally felt like her pain had purpose, that everything she had suffered had led her to exactly where she was supposed to be. And me? I stepped back from the day-to-day operations of the foundation and focused on what mattered most: my marriage, my health, my happiness. David and I traveled the world together. Paris, Tokyo, Sydney, Rome. All the places Richard and I had always planned to visit but never got around to. All the places I thought I would never see after he died. We grew old together the way couples are supposed to. Gray hair and reading glasses and early bedtimes. Arguments about what to watch on television and whose turn it was to cook dinner. Small irritations and great joys woven together into something beautiful and ordinary and real. On my 68th birthday, David threw me a surprise party. Not a big one, just close friends and family gathered in our backyard. Linda and Barbara were there, of course. Tom Williams, still practicing law at 82. The staff from the foundation who had become like children to me. David stood up to make a toast. When I first met Margaret Thompson, I was 26 years old and terrified of my best friend's beautiful wife. Everyone laughed. I spent the next 30 years admiring her from afar, watching her build an empire, watching her love Richard with everything she had, watching her survive his death and somehow keep going. He looked at me, his eyes bright with love. And then when she needed someone the most, I finally got the chance to show her how I felt. Not the way I planned, of course. Nothing about our story was planned, but that is life, is it not, messy and complicated and full of surprises? He raised his glass. To Maggie, my wife, my partner, the strongest woman I have ever known. Here is to 68 years, and here is to many more. Everyone drank. I wiped tears from my eyes. Later that evening, after the guests had gone and David was cleaning up the kitchen, I sat on the patio and looked up at the stars. The same stars I had looked at all those years ago, wondering if I would ever be happy again. I thought about Richard, the love of my life gone now for almost a decade, but never forgotten. I thought about Ryan rotting in a cell somewhere, paying the price for his cruelty. I thought about all the women the foundation had helped, all the lives we had saved, all the hearts we had protected from predators. And I thought about myself, Margaret Thompson, 68 years old, widow, victim, survivor, wife, founder, friend. I had lived a life full of love and loss, triumph and tragedy. I had been broken and rebuilt. I had trusted the wrong people and found the right ones. I had made mistakes and learned from them. And through it all, I had never given up, never stopped fighting, never stopped believing that something good could come from something terrible. David came out and sat beside me. He took my hand without saying anything, and we watched the stars together in comfortable silence. "What are you thinking about?" he asked finally. "Everything. Nothing. How strange life is. Strange that I am here. That after everything I went through, I ended up happier than I ever thought possible." I turned to look at him. "Strange that the worst thing that ever happened to me led me to you." He smiled. Ryan Mitchell did exactly one good thing in his entire miserable life. He brought us together. He would hate knowing that. Yes, he would, which makes it even better. I laughed and leaned against his shoulder. The man I loved, the man who had waited decades for me, the man who proved that love does not have to hurt, that trust does not have to be broken, that happy endings are possible even after the darkest chapters. A few months later, I received news that Ryan Mitchell had died in prison. Heart attack, they said. He was 55 years old. I did not go to the funeral. I did not send flowers. I did not feel anything at all except a quiet sense of closure. The last chapter of that story was finally completely over. I thought about the night I had heard him whisper those words in my ear. "Only 3 days. Finally, everything is mine." He had been so confident then, so sure that he had won, but he had not won. He had lost everything: his freedom, his youth, his health, his life, and I had gained everything: love, purpose, happiness, peace. The universe has a way of balancing the scales. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes it takes decades, but eventually everyone gets what they deserve. I am 72 years old now. David and I just celebrated our 12th wedding anniversary. The foundation has helped over 50,000 women. Linda and Barbara are grandmothers. The world keeps turning and life keeps surprising me with its capacity for both cruelty and kindness. When people ask me about my story about Ryan, about how I survived and thrived, I always tell them the same thing. I tell them that I refuse to be broken, that I took the worst thing that ever happened to me and turned it into something meaningful, that I learned to trust again, to love again, to believe in people again, despite having every reason not to. I tell them that they can do the same thing, that no matter what someone has done to them, no matter how broken they feel, they have the strength to put themselves back together. They just have to choose to fight, because that is what survival is. It is not about being unbreakable. It is about breaking and healing and becoming something stronger than you were before. Ryan Mitchell tried to destroy me. He targeted me because he thought I was weak. He thought I was just a lonely old woman who would crumble when he was done with me. But I did not crumble. I rose. I built something beautiful from the ashes of his betrayal. I found love, real love, the kind that does not demand or manipulate or deceive. I helped thousands of women protect themselves from predators like him. And I am still here, still standing, still fighting. He thought he could break me. He was wrong.